what happens when multiple downhill world champion Fabian Borel is the mastermind behind the new Canyon Strive On, a specifically designed electric mountain bike for racing. Let's find out. Riders, welcome back to Sam's Bikes, where you know we only talk e-bikes, and what a week I've had. I've had a fantastic time on the new Canyon Strive On. What a beast. And in this review, we're going to look at geometry, sizing, models, and of course, how does it ride? How does it downhill? How does it trail ride? How does it climb? And how does it jump? And loads more. And a massive shout out to each and every one of you riders that asked for me to test the Strive On, and also a massive shout out to Canyon for sending it out. And riders, you will see there's some fresh Schwalbe rubber. We've got a Magic Mary Ultra Soft and a Magic Mary Soft, my favorite combination, and a massive shout out again to Schwalbe, the long-term sponsor at Sam's Bikes. The brand new Canyon Strive On is rolling on mullet, so we've got 29 up front and 27.5 in the rear. Suspension wise, we've got 170 up front and 160 in the rear. And in the top model, it's got the Bosch Race motor. It's also coming with a 625 watt-hour battery or a 750, and it's coming in around 24 kilos. And riders, get this, the prices have rolled back to pre-COVID, and this bike is starting at 5,799 euros, which I think is amazing value. Okay, legend riders, we are at La Pinilla Bike Park, about an hour and a half north of Madrid, and we're going to do the Instant 360. How does it ride? And we are on the Canyon Strive On. Been on this bike, this is the black run, by the way, riders. Been on this bike for 1 week, and I'm going to say, whoa, massive drop. It's been so hard for me to get off this bike to actually do the video, because I've had so much fun on this bike. So first up, how does it enduro and downhill ride? Well, you see right now, right here, I'm riding a black run at La Pinilla, and this bike is fast, stiff, and stable. Another drop, big double here, I'm not gonna say the suspension is like plush. It's like a race car. It's like a race car. The suspension is super stiff. But man, it wants to go fast. And now we're about to hit a massive jump line. And how does it jump? What are you about to see? First up. The bike jumps really well, but because it's so fast and stiff, I actually found it hard to get my timing right. I felt like the bike was accelerating as I went straight into the lip, and I got my timing out a little bit. Took me like 2 days to really learn how to jump it, but now it's fine. And now we're on a bit more of like a trail track. It's not as steep, not as gnarly. And you know, for a 170, 160, like enduro race bike, you would think that this bike was lethargic, but you'd be wrong. Like, it's got a low stack height. So at 170 at the front, I measured this up against my Levo with 160, and the stack height was a little bit lower than my Levo. And the progressive geometry makes this bike ride light, and like, it's not boring, you're not overbiked. It's kind of like how I say trail duro. I reckon this is more like a end trail. Another drop here, but it's like that end trail, but when you got the big drops, it's definitely got your back. I really like this bike. I'm gonna say it's gotta be one of the best I've tested, full stop. And I hope you enjoyed that POV footage that I shot at La Pinilla Bike Park, which is about an hour and a half north of Madrid, and a massive shout out to them for allowing me to shoot there. Now I want to add on a few more things about how this bike rides. So when I say it's an end trail, what do I mean by that? I mean it's a great enduro bike, and it's also a great trail bike with the low stack height combined with that firm suspension and also the great geometry. It is a really good all-round electric mountain bike. And when I say the firm progressive suspension, well, that's clearly how I had this set up, and I absolutely loved it. You could pop off rocks and jumps. It is really fun. And now, how does it climb? Well, if any of you riders have seen the EWS, the power stages are really hard. And with a seat tube angle of 78 degrees, that low stack height, and the Bosch Race motor, this has to be the best Enduro Electric mountain bike I've ever ridden for climbing. It just eats it up. I would say this is a perfect mix of geometry, suspension kinematics, and motor choice to make it the perfect electric mountain bike for racing. The Strive On is rocking the triple phase suspension platform from Canyon, and I found it progressive, sat up in its travel, and the bike felt really lively, kind of like a trail bike. And at the same time, when I did drops and jumps, it definitely ramped up towards the end. I really like this platform. And I also want to mention the RockShox suspension was really good, and it was very easy to set up, like super easy. I felt like I was cheating. I want to mention also, to change the high-speed compression on the shock here, you're going to have to take it out of the frame. But luckily, we only changed this a few times on initial setup, so it's not a deal breaker. A few things that stood out to me over the last week of riding. The riding position is interesting. It is a lower stack height, and you kind of sit more in the center of the bike, and you do have a bit of weight on the front of the bars. And initially, it was a bit hard for me to get used to, especially going downhill, because you are over the front of the bike more. But after I got used to it and changed my body position a little bit, it is a great idea because it really kind of propels you forward, and on the climbs, it puts you in a great position for climbing. This bike is super stiff and responsive. The chainstay at the back is really chunky, paired with a 27.5 wheel. It really is snappy and responsive, and if you command it, it will go. And it was my first time using the new Zebs with the Charger 3, and I absolutely loved them. Like the old ones, I found a little bit too active, a little bit too plush off the stroke. And with these, they are firmer, but they allow you to pop off things easier, and when you need it, you've got the suspension. And we all want to have a good-looking electric mountain bike. And when I first saw the Canyon Strive On, I'm going to say I was a little bit underwhelmed, but I saw it in photos and on their website. But in person, it's not a bad-looking electric mountain bike. I think Canyon have put purpose in front of appearance, which after riding it, I think was a good idea. So let's look at the geometry numbers in a large. It's got a massive 500mm reach, head tube angle 63.5, seat tube angle 78, and a 445 chainstay. And this would be a perfect segue to talk about sizing. And I think it's really important, and I know you riders have questions. So I'm 183 centimeters, and I opted for the medium, and that is 475mm reach. And when I first sat on it, I felt the bike was a little bit small, and that's because it's got a 78-degree seat tube angle. So you really sit over the middle of the bike, almost to the front of the bike. Now, don't let that fool you. It is an illusion, because when you're climbing, it's fine. But when you're downhilling, you're obviously not sitting down. I'm going to say 100% the medium with the reach of 475 and me being 183 centimeters or around 6 foot, the perfect size for my style of riding. Because I like a bike a little bit smaller, making it more agile and playful. But Canyon on their website did recommend me a large or a medium. And let me break that down even further for you riders. So if you're a more experienced rider and you like the idea of flicking the bike around, being more playful in those corners, I would probably size down if Canyon are recommending 2 sizes. But if you're new to mountain biking or you want the bike to be flat out in a straight line and super stable, I would size up. I'm super happy to see Canyon putting the Bosch motor in the new Strive On, and in the top model, the Race motor. I absolutely love this motor. Great delivery and just really powerful. And I'm going to say, riders, if you are looking for the silent motor out there, like this is not the most silent. It's a bit more noisier than the Shimano EP8, the Bros, and the Yamaha. And also, it does still have a bit of a clunk. Bosch have got a new GPS locking and tracking system, which I think is a fantastic idea because these bikes are not exactly cheap. And if you're a fan of the channel, you'd know that I love geeking out on range. Now, in an extreme range test, expect with a 750 watt-hour battery to get around 1500 meters of vertical climbing. And clearly, if you're not in the highest assistant mode, you're going to get more range and more kilometers. And I know all you riders are probably thinking, should I be going the Bosch Race motor or the normal Bosch motor? I'm going to say the Race motor is fantastic. I really enjoyed it. But if you're not racing, you don't really need it. And I reckon the lower model specs offer better value. The Strive On is available in 4 sizes and 3 models. The CFR Underdog, 5,799 euros. The CFR, 6,999 euros. And the top spec, the Fabian Borel signature model at 9,499 euros. Also riders, please note, if you want the 750 watt-hour battery, you're gonna have to pay 200 euros extra in each model. Now, which model would I go for? I'm gonna say I'd probably go for the middle spec. It's got Fox suspension, it's got Shimano 4-piston brakes, and it's coming in at 7,000 euros, which I think is amazing value. And I would be going for the 750 watt-hour battery because it's only a 700 gram penalty, and I just like to ride in turbo most of the time. So who's the Strive On for? Well, I'm gonna say it is pretty much for everyone because I found it rode a little bit more like a trail bike in some ways, and it had your back when you really needed it for enduro and jump trails. I absolutely love it. And you might be thinking, hey Sam, how does it compare to the Spectral On, which I have not ridden? I reckon for me, having a little bit more suspension and the Bosch motor, I would probably go for the Strive On. What about you riders? And it's not all gravy. No electric mountain bike is perfect. So I've been testing the top of the line Fabian Borel, which is 9,499 euros. And it's got amazing suspension. We've got the new SRAM running gear, but I'm gonna say I would have loved to have seen the build a little bit higher spec. I would have loved to have seen the new SRAM Code Ultimate brakes. Also, the cockpit is quite basic, something you would expect to find on a much cheaper bike. And I also would have loved to have seen a wireless dropper here. But that's about it. I think they have created a really nice bike. I'm also gonna say it's not a negative, it's just what I kind of see in the industry right now. In 2023, we are seeing adjustable geometry more. I would have loved to have seen, we have a 445 chainstay here. I would have loved to have seen a flip chip, which they have actually in the sender, making it longer, making it 29 compatible. Because I know some of the riders out there do like to be able to change that around. For me, I think geometry is perfect. I wouldn't change it to a 29er, but it would have been nice to be able to do it if you wanted to. And riders, we're coming to the end of this review. I'm gonna ask you to do a favor. If you haven't subscribed to Sam's Bikes, please do. Hit the like button, add a comment. It really does help out with those algorithms. And now on to the $1 million question. Would I buy the brand new Canyon Strive On today with my hard-earned cash? I'm gonna say bloody oath. I've had a fantastic time on this bike. I love the suspension. I love how it kind of feels like a trail bike, but has your back on the enduro riding. I love how it climbs. I really think this is a very special bike, and Canyon have absolutely knocked it out of the park. And that's it for me today, riders. I hope you enjoyed it, and you know it. Stay safe out there, and we are gonna see you next week.